following episode of Generation Random is intended for mature audiences and contains adult content and graphic language. Listener discretion is advised. If you're a bit of a sook, prob's not for you.
Life is very random, life is very random, life is very random to say. Life is very random, very, very random, very, very random to say. No, you cannot see, cause life is very random. Life is very random to me, oh yeah. Life is very random to me. Random.
G'day randos, welcome to another episode of Generation Random. Today's episode is a little bit more serious, but still having a bit of fun. I have a very special guest with me today, a TV and radio personality. You might know him from his Aussie Goes TV series, and the series I fell in love with him by, The Singing Office, and Triple M, and most recently Man Up. Gus Worland, how the fuck are ya?
Thank you, mate. I've never had anyone say I've fallen in love with me around The Singing Office, but in saying that, I love that show. It only lasted a year on Fox 8, but I absolutely loved it and became really good mates with Julia Morris, who, of course, has kicked on to great things during that show. And we ended up winning like the,
You won an AFTRA for it.
Yeah, that's right, which was great. It beat Australia's Next Top Model, which was a huge show for Fox 8 for years, and it was the only show to ever knock it off its perch. But no, absolutely loved it. Great fun, and would love to do that show again.
You can go full out, Gus. You can say you've won 2 AFTRAs, not just the one. You've won 2.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
And best newcomer on radio. I've done some research for this show. Yeah.
Yeah, you have. You've done more than most, Chris. Thank you very much, mate. I appreciate it.
Mate, what I got on here for is I've been alluding to it through many episodes is the whole mental health awareness, especially for men, but I don't want to forget the women as well. I've got a lot of listeners in America and Australia who do suffer with a lot of mental health, anxiety, depression. I've suffered with it through my life, which, I'm getting to a point now that I can safely say I probably don't have it anymore. And it's something I've fought very hard to get past, and I've had a lot of support in the background with that. I finished watching Man Up for the 7th time yesterday, and each time I've watched it, I think episode 2 is the one that always makes me emotional and start crying, and it's always the bit at your son's school that gets me.
Yeah.
And just realizing, how you can know a bunch of people but not really know them as well at the same time until something like that happens. Yeah. I just want, if you can, explain the whole man box analogy for me, if you can, because you use the word man box a lot. And if you could kind of define what man box is and what it's all about.
Yeah, of course, mate. Yeah, I mean, that second episode is huge, Chris, for me, because, it was me in another room listening and watching through a monitor my son and a lot of his mates who I've known for a long time, who would basically put the mask on and put on the armour for years and never really let me get to know them properly because they just didn't think it was the right thing to do, was to show any vulnerability or any real honesty. They just wanted to be knock around kids and mates with my son. But getting back to the man box, I mean, a man box is basically all the rules and all the things, the behaviours that men are meant to do or think they need to do to become a man from a boy. And I just believe that, that set of man rules that go into the box were set so long ago. A lot of them are still absolutely the right thing to do, but probably 80% of it. So that leaves 20% for us to change those rules up now. So what do we do now compared to what we knew 100 years ago, just to make it easier and better for blokes to become better blokes and to be able to be open, honest and vulnerable, and to realise that, we can be totally honest and upfront with people and not have to put the mask and armour on all the time. And I suppose the best way to deal with that in a schoolroom is, as you're chatting to them about what it takes to be a man, you grab some nail polish and you start putting the nail polish on, and some smart ass at the end of the room or the alpha male will say, what are you putting that on for, sir, or Gus, or whoever how they're going to call me? And I go, well, yeah, it's probably 150 years ago. And Pierre in France said women wear nail polish and blokes can't. So we're stuck to that rule. Why would we give a shit what Pierre thinks? Why do we care? Why don't we set a new rule now that you can wear it if you want to? And it sort of sets the tone for the kids to realise that perhaps a lot of our behaviours and a lot of our thoughts are based on something that someone else made up the rule all those years ago. So if we can change that rule, whether you want to or not, of course, it's up to you. But, you know, I don't necessarily want to change that rule, but it shows us that we can if we want to. So then we look at a whole lot of behaviours of what it takes to be a man, and we go, you know what? Is that suitable for us now? Yes or no? And you decide what you want. So we're looking at the whole set of rules of what it takes to be a man, chucking a few of the old-fashioned ones out, i.e. every single emotion should be buried, not being totally open and honest and vulnerable with your friends. That's rubbish. You know, we're putting that back in now. And blokes just struggling along and worrying alone and stuff is a thing of the past.
Let's take one of your little slogans. It takes balls to cry. I absolutely love that. And I'm with you. I think it takes a lot of strength to ask for help, to seek help. And I know how hard it can be from personal, you know, things happen to you. You feel like you're a burden if you tell somebody and you think, nah, I've just got to deal with it. But the pressure just builds and builds and builds and builds until one day you crack and you're like, well, nah, this world's not, you know, for me, or everyone would do better without me. And that's where we kind of need to look at telling men and women, you know, don't let it ever get to that. Vent it out as soon as possible. You know, release the pressure.
And that's something that we're never taught. We're not taught that at school, boys or girls. So what I'm trying to talk about now, Chris, is have a look at your physical fitness. Give yourself a mark out of 10. If you get anyone listening to your podcast right now, listening to us talk away, grab a pen and paper, and on the left-hand side of the page, write a score out of 10 for your physical fitness. Then on the other side of the paper, write a score out of 10 for your mental fitness. Right, so you've got 2 scores out of 10 there. It might take you a little while longer to work out your mental fitness score. But if you then look at your physical fitness, you know a whole lot of exercises and behaviours that you need to do to get your physical fitness up to scratch. You stop eating bad food, you're off the grog more than you're on the grog, you stop having takeaway, you're moving more, you get a gym membership, whatever it might be. There's a whole lot of stuff there that actually is pretty easy and everyone knows it. Well, what are the exercises required to build your mental fitness? And that's what we need to start working on. So that's why these programs into schools and all the support that Gotcha4Life gives programs is it's building the emotional muscle so you can actually start having the conversation you spoke about. So you're not having an absolute trauma where someone is trying to take their life. When things start to build, there's a bit of resilience there. There's a bit of hard work. There's some stuff there that is absolutely fine for you to take on. We're not talking about jumping into a deep and meaningful conversation every 5 minutes or bursting into tears. But at the right time, having someone in your life that you can say, you know what, I need to talk to you, and I need to talk to you about something which is more important than our normal banter. And you just need to have that one person, and you need to have the emotional muscle to build the words to start the conversation. And once you do, it's that pressure you were talking about, Chris. It just starts to release. It releases away, and all of a sudden you're not blowing into a balloon every time you have a drama. Eventually the balloon will burst. We're letting off the pressure every now and again, and that's the key. Steve Smith, when I took him round for his 100 hours of community service round after the drama in South Africa, he spoke about that balloon. You know, every time someone took something from here or he felt bad or sad, he would blow into this balloon, and eventually it would have burst if he hadn't have the right people around him where he could be totally open, honest and vulnerable. And that takes a little bit of time and effort to build that village around you of people that can support you. And also you get a situation now in Australia where you don't think that you've got the right words to start the conversation. So you end up not having the conversation at all.
Well, that was something I wanted to ask you. Do you think the Australian culture is killing men in such as
it is
the way we're brought up,
100%.
the way Australian men are raised? Do you think it's killing them more than it's saving them?
100%. We've got this this way that we are in Australia. She'll be right, mate. You know, those sort of terms that we say. You know, we'll take that on. I don't want to be a whinger. I don't want to burden my mates. I don't want to be that guy in the group of mates who brings everyone down. You know, and the stereotypical Australian bloke is a very tough man to try to live up to. And most of it is just BS. So very, very difficult. So let's just go back to the man rules and that man box again you're talking about at the top. You know, let's start building something that's actually achievable and something that we can actually work towards rather than this BS of trying to live up to this guy that I think is impossible to live up to. And it's all a matter of educating boys and blokes of your age, blokes of my age now in my early 50s, to a whole new set of rules to go into the box.
Let me throw some stats out there to some people, and these are based in Australia. 8 suicide attempts every minute in Australia. That's suicide attempts. 2,000 men every year die of suicide. And then I think this is one from your first episode. Men are 6 times more likely to die of suicide than an actual construction incident on a construction site. And while they're in construction. Construction workers probably, I reckon construction workers and soldiers are probably, it's a much higher rate within those industries than anything. And it's probably the two of the industries where you really can't, like, you're more of a manly man, if you know what I mean. You're trying to be more of a manly man. Yeah. And it's harder to talk to other people who are trying to have that kind of manly man persona. You start crying or start something, oh, get away from me, fag, or get away from me, don't be a pussy, shut up, you know, things like that. And that's where we got to try and move from, is like, if you see somebody struggling, I can hand on shoulder, what's going on, mate? Tell me your story. I heard a great saying the other day, and it was, I rather sit down and listen to your story than attend your funeral.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought that was a brilliant saying. I mean, it's pretty to the point and it's blunt, but it gets the point across.
We need to be blunt at times. You know, we don't want people, you know, to be blunt all the time, but at the right times, it's really important to sometimes just say, hey, are you suicidal? How are you feeling? And just sit there and listen to the answer. Have a vulnerable conversation where it is awkward. Lots of silences. People can't get the words out. They're fine. They're the conversations that are actually going to build the emotional muscle you require to get through stuff. You know, I mean, those stats on construction workers we've lost way more construction workers to suicide than actually workplace accidents. We've lost many more soldiers in the last 20 or 30 years to suicide after than we did actually in battle. It's a massive problem right across our society. The number one way to die if you're an Australian male age between 15 and 44 is suicide. So, you know, you can shout from the rooftops all those stats. Bottom line is there's a lot of really good people out there, and you're one of them, Chris, who's got through your own stuff, and you're out there helping now with this podcast. And no doubt you're trying to build a safer place around you and your mates so you can have a proper chat. The thing is, no matter what I'm doing and you're doing, mate, and all the other great people, those numbers aren't going down. And we're coming through a massive, massive issue at the moment with COVID, off the back of, in rural areas, drought, fire, now COVID. Mate, the next 2 to 5 years, we're going to have to be on our game, mate. Absolutely on our game. And it's very hard sometimes to pick up when people are sad, because blokes are so good in particular at putting on the mask and the armour. So it's the bloke. It was a bloke who died last week. He's a runner. I never met him, but a lot of blokes that I knew when I was running did the marathon and stuff. He was the smiliest bloke you'd ever come across. Every photograph on Facebook is this huge beaming smile. He took his own life a few days ago. These are the guys, the clowns, the ones you don't expect. They're the ones that we need to worry about. But we don't know. We don't know because they're so good at hiding how they truly feel. So that's why we need to give people the emotional muscle building up so they can come to you and say, you know what, I'm going through some stuff, because it's bloody hard to pick it up when we're so good at hiding it.
Something from your show I noticed on your wall in the third episode when you were trying to figure out your audience and everything. There was three lines which I thought was brilliant, and it was only shown very quickly, and it was no shame, no stigma, no judgment. I think that's the way everyone should approach any mate that they feel is down, and vice versa. If you're down, how you have no shame in talking about what you need to talk about.